You ready?
7 minutes, yes.
7 minutes, yes. And you can also even look at that.
Oh.
So 2 weeks ago, at the Madame Tussauds Wax Museum in Berlin, they unveiled a figure of a 15-year-old girl. This girl is one of the most iconic figures of the 20th century. Her book has been translated into 67 different languages, selling more than 31 million copies worldwide. This girl is Anne Frank. And we all know the story of Anne Frank, how her and her family and a few other families lived in an annex of an office building in Amsterdam, hiding. They were all Jews, and they were hiding from the Nazi occupation during World War II. But why is her diary so famous compared to all the other accounts that have been taken of the Holocaust? So initially, the diary started out as just a regular diary. Anne originally wrote it just for herself, but on a radio broadcast in 1944, Gerrit Bolkestein, a member of the Dutch government in exile in London, sent out a radio account that he wanted to compile first-person accounts of the Dutch occupation, of the German occupation of Amsterdam. So he specifically mentioned in his radio broadcast he wanted letters and diary entries. So this inspired Anne to start self-editing her diary and compiling what would be one of the first drafts of the Diary of Anne Frank that we know today. So a little bit of history about the diary itself. Her first book that she wrote in was given to her on her 13th birthday. It was not meant to be a diary. It was an autograph booklet with like red binding that she got from her father. And the first entry was made 2 days after her 13th birthday. And that first entry was June 14th, 1942. And then, of course, the last entry that she ever makes in her diaries is August 1st, 1944. So it's about the span of almost 2 years. Something unique about her diary entries are she was writing to a girl named Kitty, who we don't know who Kitty is specifically. People assumed it was this girl she knew growing up named Kitty, because there were pictures of this girl named Kitty that were taken from the Franks archives. And this girl claims that it wasn't her. She felt honored that they assumed it was her that she was writing to, but they weren't very good friends while Anne was still alive. So the woman named Kitty that people think she was writing to is not who she was writing to. And there was also stories that her mother would read to her with a character named Kitty into it, a character named Kitty in the story. So people think that may have been the reason for the name. But originally, she used other names, such as Kitty was a common one she used, but she also used the name Connie, Emmy, Pop, and Marianne, and that's all within the first notebook. And then after the first notebook, she pretty much starts using Kitty for all the other books, the other parts of her diary. And it's not until she self-edits her diaries, when she's compiling the book, that she changes all the names in the series to Kitty. So the original manuscripts, are written into 3 volumes. The first book is the autograph book that she used, and that was dated from the 14th of June, 1942 to December 6, 1942. Then there's the second journal that was recovered, and that's dated from December 22nd, 1943 to April 17th, 1944. And there's almost a whole year missing there, and people believe that they were lost when Nazis were raiding the annex, and they were never recovered. But when Anne was editing her own draft, it was in that draft. So we still have accounts of what was there during that year, but we don't have the original documents. And then the third part of the diary was dated from April 17th, 1944 to her last entry in August 1st, 1944. There were other works of fiction that were composed while she was in the annex, including a 5 chapters of a novel she was writing, poetry, prose, and letters, of course, that she had written. So because so much time occurs in the diary, you get to see the growth of the character, which is really unique compared to other stories of the Holocaust. And that's why so many people are drawn to the character of Anne Frank. People are noted how emotionally developed she is and becomes throughout her time in the annex, and they are really believe that her writing's remarkable. She's really the self-taught writer. She wasn't going to school. She was taking schooling, of course, from her parents, but while she was in the annex, but she wasn't necessarily attending school. And it's unique that her writing developed so immaculately through this period. And a lot of the growth of the characters is apparent. And actually, when she was self-editing the diary, in the first draft, she wrote that she despised her mother, and she really just didn't get along with her. And they were staying in this annex together, so they were probably on each other all the time. But when she was re-editing it, she realized how rude she was being towards her mother, and what negative side she was giving towards her mother, and felt really guilty about it. So she actually revised it when she was recompiling her diary and made her mother more in a positive light than a negative. Unlike most diary entries that are just daily occurrences, her story is really apparent compared to just individualized stories. It's one long story that is really easy for people to read. One thing that was edited when the